It's another day, the sun is shining. Got to know what's going on around you. Wake up, it's the time to motivate your mind. Come with me, let's make this moment brighter. Wake up with the Bahamas and sunrise. Come on and wake up with the Bahamas and sunrise. Wake up with the Bahamas and sunrise. Wake up with the Bahamas and sunrise. Hey.
Good morning and welcome to Bahamas at Sunrise. I'm Anastasia Palacios.
Good morning. Happy Monday to you. I'm Philip Simon.
And it is always a pleasure to be back in your company after the weekend. Still, a lot of people are going back to work today that actually had the holidays off, and so we've been back since
I'm
Friday.
trying to figure out, what do you mean go back
Yeah,
to work?
but a lot of people are going back today, and I know, like, especially my teachers, many of us who
Well,
are
that's right,
returning
that's right,
to
that's
the
right.
regularly
Teachers, yeah,
scheduled
yeah.
programming. It's a struggle, man.
I know it's going to be a slow drive, no doubt about that. My kids are back to school today as well, so yes, I do understand that.
Everybody's
now, right?
back to
Yeah,
school, back to work, and I guess for the kids, this is their time when they're starting to shift now the focus to exams because those will be coming up in a few months, and so
serious time. Serious time.
yeah,
I'm
bye
actually-
holidays.
I'm actually starting back in earnest, daily workouts this
Okay.
week. I had a break. That was a real break.
And then over the weekend you had more break. You had conch and grits and
That
lobster
was a
and
private
shrimp.
conversation before the show
We always
started.
raise my private conversations
Coach
to you
might be-
all, so I
Coach
figured
might
I
be
may as well do
watching.
the same
It
thing.
was just, it's the last time, I promise you. That's it.
No, but that's good though, and I think I've gotten the okay from my doctor for me to start walking and stuff again too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's really important. I've already started to see some people out there pushing those resolutions to the next level. And
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
The drive is. It's a busy. So you're driving up to here in the morning time, and it's just so many people. I'm like, wow, I wonder what this is going to look like by March.
yeah, let's talk February 15th. But I'm hoping that people will put us to shame and that will stick with their commitments. You
Yeah.
really want, I think, the healthiest body that you can have.
You do.
And
You
so,
only have one.
you only have one in one lifetime.
That's right.
And as much as you can extend that, and then not only extend it, but make sure that the quality of life is good, really depends on that physical activity.
No doubt about it.
And even though so many things are happening in world politics, we don't know where we will be toward the end of the year.
My goodness.
While we have life, we should try to
Live
take
it
care of
abundantly,
ourselves.
live it abundantly.
Yeah.
It was a good weekend actually. I was trying to remember. It came out. I'm like, I know she's going to ask me what I did. I'm like, I didn't do much at all. I watched the games.
Yeah,
I'm
I did too.
Oh man, the Saints lost. Our
Saints
team
lost.
back in 2017, the Eagles lost.
My team always. Yes,
Okay,
we
that's
lost as
right.
well.
Okay, that was my
But
team
you
in
know what was really good?
2017.
The
What's that?
Patriots lost. So it is all well with the world.
You know what? I with you on that. I with you on that. I with you on that.
No, but I'm looking forward, of course, to next weekend's games and seeing who will eventually
yeah.
make it
It's
out
fun.
to the Super. It is.
Yeah,
It's a good time.
fun,
It's a
fun,
good
fun.
time.
It's fun. You know what also is fun?
What else? Stop.
Sunrise.
It is.
Yeah, sunrise is always
Sometimes.
fun.
Sometimes it's a stretch. Like this morning because it's cold. And it's like, wow, it's 4 o'clock. I really got to get up and go out
Gotta
there.
get up.
No, but it is always fun. We've got a great show lined up for you today.
We do. I met upstairs for the first time Lasagna Miski.
Okay.
She's the managing director, president. I don't know which all titles she has at Royal Bank. I almost want to say, hey, listen, I always wanted to meet you. Hey, believe that?
Yeah, no,
I
she's.
wonder if she's watching this.
I hope she
probably
is.
is.
Because no,
Anyway,
I fan on her as well because she's done so incredibly well in that sector. And I'm always a strong advocate for women taking
I
on
know that, I
leadership
know
roles,
that,
and so
yeah.
just to see what she's been able to do in her banking career has been awesome. So,
Yeah. So she's here along with Dr. Bob Robinson, president of BTBI. We're going to be talking about race for the kids. Simone was also here on Friday past,
Yeah.
Simone Bowe, and we started to get into the conversation about careers and transitions and all the rest of that stuff. And got so carried away, we only did half of the interview, so I said, gotta come on back, and we're going
Okay.
to talk more about, how important it is when you're going from one career to the next, and also interviews. So it's a great topic.
And that's a great topic. I think more people need to have that conversation because so many, I know HR professionals, and I've worked in spaces where I've done interviews before, and people get frustrated by the fact that people don't interview well. But
Right.
my question is always, what are we doing to teach people what it is we're looking for?
Right.
And the soft skills that are necessary to kind of, do well in interviews, but also be able to back those interviews up with doing well in the role.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's going to be a great conversation with Simone Bowe. We're also going to be talking about artificial intelligence.
AI.
That's huge for us. The year is 2020, of course. We don't have jets and cars yet, but
Yeah.
certainly artificial intelligence
Amazing, right?
is transforming the
We've
way
been
that we
talking
do
about it
things.
from the Jetson days.
Yeah.
But it's real. I mean, and a thing about it, we we may not know it by its formal definition when
Right,
we see it,
right.
but it's all around us.
It is.
It's
it
all
is.
around us. Yeah.
So we're going to take a look at how that's contributing to education and healthcare. And then meteorologist Wayne Neely, he's been with us before. You know, he's written that amazing books on hurricanes. Well, this time he's extended that book to include Hurricane Dorian. So we're going to find out, you know, what information is included there, what we can find out even as we prepare for future storms, right? And those wildfires in Australia are certainly an example of the way the climate change is impacting each of our zones in a very different way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's a real thing, Donald
Yeah.
Trump. Speaking of Trump, man, listen,
Pray.
President Trump. Yeah, okay, you know what? We won't
Yeah,
even
no,
get into that this morning.
I will say,
But we have to watch it.
we do. We have to watch it, and we shouldn't take for granted, one, that there aren't Bahamian troops involved, because there are Bahamians
Yeah,
who are in the
absolutely.
armed forces of the USA, and then two, that our proximity, our proximity, one, and our tourism product, which are both have investors on both
Correct.
sides of this divide. You know, we have to just be very
Yeah,
careful,
absolutely.
very appreciative, begin to look at ways that we can make sure that we're streamlining our finances, because you just never know what can
just never
happen.
know.
And then more than anything, stay in prayer,
No,
because
no doubt about it. We can't afford any hiccups. I
Yeah.
mean, any hiccups in our economy, in the way that we live, and we have to always just kind of be as best prepared, like you said, as we can be. Yeah.
Well, before we get into more of today's show, hopefully some lighter topics, we're going to take a look at weather with Godfrey Birdside.
Weather at sunrise. Brought to you by Bahamas First. First in insurance. Today, tomorrow.
Thank you, Star, and good morning, Bahamas. And your first look at weather at sunrise. Had a cool front move through early yesterday morning. Now in the southeast Bahamas, that stalled and should dissipate sometime during the day. High pressure building across the islands. Expect some fresh wind to start building over the next 24 to 36 hours. But today, we're looking at partly sunny, still on the cool side. High temperature reaching 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, near clear skies. Your low going down to 58 in the extreme northwest Bahamas and the mid-60s across New Providence area. Some regional highs and lows across the Caribbean. Barbados 81 and 76. In Jamaica 80 and 70. Trinidad 83 and 73. And the Turks and Caicos Islands 75 and 66. Across North America, Atlanta 56 and 39. In Raleigh 57 and 36. In Miami 77 and 52. In Dallas, Texas 1642. Toronto, Canada 37 and 30. As we go through the week, partly sunny skies on the mild side, cool at nighttime. Those temperatures daytime will be in the mid-70s at nighttime, upper 50s to mid-60s. That puts her up on your first look at weather at sunrise. I'm Godfrey Burnside. Back to you, Phil.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. Race for the Kids is an exciting series of charitable runs supporting children's causes across the globe. The inaugural Bahamas race will be held the 18th global race will be the 18th global race and the third within the Caribbean. Here to tell us more are Dr. Robert Robinson, Dr. Bob, President of BTBI, Hadassah Delaval, Public Relations Officer BTBI, and LaSonia Missick, who I was just talking on earlier, Managing Director, Head of Personal Banking, RBC. Ladies, gent, welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. A really great thing you guys are doing. A really great thing. I was doing a little research on this. I didn't realize that it was a global initiative at first, but indeed it is, and it has actually a great theme behind it. Tell us more about it.
Absolutely. The race has actually started in 2009 with the first occurring in New York, and since then we've expanded into Europe, Asia, Australia, of course Canada, and the U.S. And so we are definitely excited that this is the third race that's actually being conducted in the Caribbean. So far globally we've had 210,000 participants, and we've raised about 50 million Canadian dollars. So very exciting, great cause. and it's very much aligned to our purpose at RBC of helping our clients thrive and our communities prosper.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So RBC is also involved in the other ones that would happen in the Caribbean as well?
oh yes, it's RBC Race for the
It's
kids.
RBC Race,
So
okay.
it's an RBC-led initiative, and something that we're very proud of, and a part of how we live our purpose.
Yeah, you chose BTVI as a partner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so was that something that was very deliberate?
It was, absolutely. We looked at opportunities locally on where and who we can support, and we believe that the work that BTVI is doing in terms of building the skills of our young people in the trades field and other capabilities, that it was very much aligned to the type of initiatives that Race for the Kids supports. So, yeah.
You know, the very first question when I asked Dr. Bob, you can be racing or, you know?
I'll be walking fast.
You'll be walking
Yeah.
fast. How does this benefit BTVI?
Well, it helps in many ways. First, it cements, I think, a really good partnership with a real premier brand, the Royal Bank of Canada. They've done an excellent job, as you've said, in other jurisdictions with respect to this race. It's globally known. It really helps our profile in that respect, but it also helps us on a more immediate basis. We have a real pressing need to build our retention capacity. We get a lot of students who come in, they're really excited, but for various reasons they don't have the skills to continue with their academic and technical careers. And so the monies that are raised in this event primarily go towards retention efforts, which is a real critical need for us. In addition, since the race was announced, we also have critical needs obviously in Abaco and in Grand Bahama, and so a portion of the proceeds will go towards helping us with respect to getting our campuses up and running again in both of those locations. So we're really pleased to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, lots of different programs within BTVI. And we've talked about it in the past, but you have a STAR program as well, Hadassah.
Yes.
Yes, and so it's very important for us to track our students, particularly those who are within their first year. They could be at risk for dropping out, and it's very important for our students to not just start, but to finish. And so at BTVI, we're not just interested in them getting into our programs, but actually completing, and we're catering to the whole man. We want to see them succeed, and we also want to track them when they have graduated.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about the race itself. When, where, how? I'm pretty sure we need to get these camera guys involved in it as well.
Absolutely. So it's actually happening within the Marathon Bahamas race weekend, which is, of course, January 19th. Our race is occurring on the Sunday itself. It starts at 9, warm up at 8. It's a 5K race. It will be branded RBC, and it will end at the Western Esplanade at the RBC Race Village. There will be fun activities at the end of the race. And as you mentioned, if we can't run, we can definitely
just
walk
real fast.
and participate in it. Yeah.
We can guarantee that you'll be ready for work on Monday.
How is BTVI partnering with the actual race itself? You can have teams of students and teachers involved as well.
Yes, at BTVI, we're really excited about this initiative, and we're just honored to have been chosen by RBC. And I'd just like to say registration is still open, so take the opportunity to invest in future tradespeople. So it's $35 for adults, for BTVI employees, staff, faculty, and for RBC employees, it's $25. And for those who are under 18, it's $15. For others who choose to run within a group, 10 or more, it's just $30. So don't think of it as Christmas is just over, I don't have any money. Think about the future. Think about the fact that you're investing in that future plumber, that future cosmetologist, that future IT professional. It's an investment in our youth and our older people who attend BTVI as well, to really help with solidifying the labor force further.
Yeah. What's the cost of participation?
So it's $35, really, but like I said, for BTVI, staff, faculty, and students, it will be $25. And if you're in a group, $30. For those who are under 18, $15.
Well, I guarantee it's not the money that they're thinking about right after Christmas. It's Christmas. You mentioned a little bit about the corporate partnership, of course, with RBC, but I would imagine there are other corporate partnerships and programs that would benefit BTVI and other persons that would get involved. So it's not just RBC,
Right.
but it's others.
Yeah.
We're looking obviously at other partnerships, primarily with like construction companies, for example, given the needs of the country right now and some of the things that are happening in Grand Bahama. We're looking at some big opportunities to work with companies there to develop a more formal apprenticeship program. So they go to school part-time and they'd work part-time, but they'd be able to pick up the skills that are so desperately needed. The RBC partnership, though, is a really good one because it is a global brand. It's an opportunity not only to cement that connection, but also in terms of the activity itself. In the new year, everyone needs to work on their promises that they've made to themselves. One of which is to lose weight, get fit. So, from my point of view, that's why I'll be walking. But I'm looking forward to it. I've already talked to a number of people. Some high schools and elementary schools are interested. They're bringing some young people, some students, and that's really what it's about. That's why it's called Run for the Kids. And so we're really excited to be able to open it up to not only BTVI participants, but also to others.
I would only add that at RBC we are leveraging our corporate relationships as well and reaching out to our corporate partners to participate, and so we're looking forward to them coming on board also.
So this is the first time partnering with BTVI, but obviously it's an ongoing relationship throughout the year, I would imagine.
Absolutely. So this is absolutely our first time. However, we are looking at ways that we can continue to expand the partnership. We're really focused on volunteerism as well, and so areas where we can be a little bit more involved, our employees can be a bit more involved in what's happening at BTVI and on the campus. We will be focusing on that also.
BTVI has been around for a long time, and things have changed, Hadassah. I mean, we've got a public relations officer now. So when we talk about BTVI, what's the thing that persons who are interested should know?
Well, first of all, as you would realize, BTVI is the premier technical vocational education institution in the country. And essentially what we're doing is preparing people for the workforce. And we don't want to just have employees. We want these students to graduate and become employers. So what we're doing is trying to get them to be economically independent and to be on a global stage. For example, when you complete our information technology management program at BTVI, you don't just complete with an associate's degree. You actually have international certifications. So we are preparing them for a work world that's really global. It's beyond the Bahamas. And so we just want people to know that BTVI is a viable institution. We are really a national treasure. We churn out graduates who actually go into the workforce and who are hugely a part of and connected to the labor force. And they're necessary. You need your plumber. You need, in fact, I need to get my car serviced right now. I need an auto mechanic. Okay, so these students, these graduates, what they're doing, it's necessary.
Absolutely. All right, going to give you the final word again. Give us the details when where they can register.
Absolutely. So I will actually start with how I began, which is it's important for us to support our communities, and we're just so pleased to be a part of this initiative with BTVI. Details, January 19th, warm-up is at 8, the event starts at 9. It's a part of the Bahamas Race weekend. We're on that Sunday. Persons can register at Rbc Race for the Kids, Bahamas.com. Very easy. We're looking forward to the support of everyone to make this a great inaugural event for us.
Right, there you have it. Lasanya Missick, Managing Director, Head of Personal Banking, RBC. Dr. Robert Robinson, President, BTVI. Hadassah Delaveau, Public Relations Officer, BTVI. Thank you so much for joining us here on Bahamas Sunrise.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Watching Bahamas Sunrise. We'll be right back.
Good afternoon. First response. How can I help you?
I've been in an accident on West Bay Street. Can you send someone to help?
Yes, ma'am. A first response team will be there in 15 minutes. Are you hurt?
No, I'm fine, but a bit upset.
We're glad you're not hurt. Please, try to relax. Our team will take care of everything as soon as they arrive.
First Response provides immediate on-site service and support from the scene of an accident through the claims and repair process. And it's free to all Bahamas First insured drivers in New Providence, every day for any type of accident. If you drive and want First Response on your side, call 321-FIRST or visit bahamasfirst.com for the name of an authorized Bahamas First agent. First Response can't prevent an accident from happening,
but it can certainly ease your mind when it happens.
Unwrap holiday joy as Shell lights up Christmas with $50,000 in prizes just for you. Win a brand new 2020 Hyundai i20 Active, thousands of dollars in John Bull and Kelly's gift certificates, along with the latest Apple electronics. From now through January 24, 2020, purchase a minimum of $20 in fuel from your favorite Shell location in New Providence and enter to win. Visit our Sun Oil Limited Facebook page for weekly giveaways as Shell lights up Christmas. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. Industries are evolving rapidly in the digital age. And what role does AI, that is artificial intelligence, play in this evolution? Here to talk about how AI affects healthcare and education, a subject that we will go more in depth with at this year's Bahamas Business Outlook. We're very happy to welcome Dr. Charles Digges. He's the Chief Medical Officer with the Department of Health and Human Services, and to Kushad Lang, he's the Math and Science Department Head at the Windsor School at Albany. Good morning and welcome to Bahamas at Sunrise.
Good morning, Anastasia.
A pleasure to have you both, and such an interesting conversation, I think, to get 2020 started.
Absolutely.
And we say 2020, and I think for those of us who've been around, at least I've only been around since the 80s, but it just seems like we've come so far to be here in 2020, and we look at technology and we realize that it really is kind of accelerated. And this idea of AI is one that really can be used for our good and our enhancement if we allow it to. So when we take a look at healthcare in particular, what do we see AI impacting most?
So, Anastasia, a little historical perspective. AI arose in the mid-50s and created a buzz of excitement when it became apparent that you could actually get some intelligence out of machines. It went through a bit of a winter. It flourishes in the cinema and graphics industry, visions of the Terminator, etc., with cyborgs combining human and machine intelligence. But its applications over the last 2 decades at least are notable. And one of the things that we intend to do at the Bahamas Business Outlook Forum is to talk about the scope of application of AI in all industries. In fact, it's really ubiquitous. When you come to healthcare, you start to see that a lot of the advances in healthcare are actually facilitated by machine learning, by machine intelligence. And you can look at multiple examples on the diagnostic side. We've had some very significant moves where you look at the interpretation of images or the interpretation of slides in specialties like radiology and pathology has been enhanced and even has been surpassed by artificial or machine intelligence. So now the role of the specialist is beginning to shift as a result.
Let's talk about that, because I think some people hear this. Some people are excited by it. Some people are afraid of it. And they wonder, what does it mean for machines to be able to do these things on their own? And then those of us that are looking at it from a practical perspective now say, well, what does this mean for skill sets, for knowledge? And how do we then work and get jobs and be able to take care of ourselves if a machine can do what a human has done?
Right. So this is really important, especially for us at Doctors Hospital, when we project into the future and start to identify what kinds of strategies we need to implement, especially in terms of training and educating and certifying our folk, then usual jobs are going to shift. And you will find that a lot of the repetitive functions, so-called recursive functions, things that can be repeated forever, will be taken over by the machine intelligence. And so usual functions then move to what we call the top of their profession, where they become involved much more in oversight or in unusual or outlier activities. So we now need to train our people not just in the traditional specialties, but towards the limits of those specialties so that they remain relevant in the future. So it's really a future conversation that has a lot to do with strategy for Doctors Hospital now.
Certainly, and I would assume that those people generally, as we talk about like skill sets that are very repetitive, need to become more accustomed to learning about technology itself and who are the managers of this technology, who are the people that are servicing machines and that sort of thing. so we can still be relevant from that side.
Right, so that also creates another industry, the servicing of the machines. These machines are not in and of themselves autonomous.
Right.
So we create new industries that will support the machine intelligence that is supplementing or augmenting human intelligence.
Yeah, this is a good conversation. So Bahamas, this sounds like it's going to be awesome because I'm sure you're going to get lots of questions, and it's not just healthcare and education, there'll also be logistics and transportation.
Absolutely.
So we certainly want to encourage people to come out to that. We talk about education, and Phil and I were saying that all the kids go back to school today, and I don't know how many of them are as excited as they should be. But how is AI really impacting the way that kids are learning today?
And so in today's world, AI is seamlessly integrated. I know, for instance, at our institution, digital platforms are used every single day. Platforms like Grammarly that, for instance, allow us to cut out time when we need to proofread or error adjust paragraphs or statements or essays and papers and things along those lines. From a teacher's perspective, classroom management tools are huge. Right? Platforms like Google Classroom, which allow me to give feedback instantaneously to my students and sometimes eliminate the need for my feedback and allow the machine or the platform to jump in and answer simple questions that I would have had to take time out to answer. It allows us to be able to assess and measure student outcomes, right? And formulates or tabulates those outcomes in a manner that's represented across something that students, parents, and educators can understand and read. In terms of how we teach and learn, AI has completely changed the game. Like Dr. Diggers mentioned, the skill sets that are relevant today aren't the skill sets that are going to be relevant tomorrow.
Right.
And so having a baseline understanding of technology and programming and robotics is definitely essential as these jobs are displaced from those recursive careers into ones that allow for the maintenance and development of these technologies.
Is there any downside at all, though? I know that many parents are concerned that their kids spend too much time on tablets or computers or interacting with these systems and not enough time engaging one-on-one with people. Do we see any sort of negative side to AI in the classroom?
I'm sure there is, but I'm a big-time AI optimist and technology enthusiast, and so for me, it's if anything, it's added to the human engagement element. My students have access to me 24/7 from my phone to my watch to my tablet to my laptop, and it allows for that continuous feedback. And that's the major key in teaching and learning. How well a student grasps a concept is how much they've engaged with the content and how much feedback or constructive feedback they've gotten relative to that content. And so what this digital space and AI has allowed is for that feedback to pretty much never stop. And so I agree that kids today spend a lot of time on their devices, but there's so much constructive space for them to spend on these devices that I don't necessarily see it as limiting.
Okay, and then when we think about what we're learning on these devices, I mean, certainly for the most part, our traditional subjects matter still. You want math, you want language, right? And you look at something like Grammarly, and Grammarly significantly helps us with certain language curves that many of us have. But are there other things that we need to be learning as we make this shift into integrating AI more in our education? Are there other subject areas and subject matters that really should be starting from the K level, going up to the 12th grade that we maybe have not considered in our education system yet?
And so right now, I think that engineering and technology courses are absolutely essential. In any industry or let's not even talk professional, but let's just talk tertiary education. In any sort of tertiary program that you want to dive into, a baseline understanding of the technologies behind that particular subject area is absolutely necessary. And so early exposure from K all the way through 12, and not just exposure, but development of the skills is not just nice, but it's required.
Okay. All right, Dr. Diggers, any final words for us? I mean, I'm hoping that people will come on out to hear you, because this is an interesting panel. We can only get so much of it in this section. But any final words you want to leave with us as we embrace this new era?
Sure, just to leave a thought. One would be on the empowerment of patients. Patients have much more access to their own information. And in the background of assimilating that information, processing that information, is machine intelligence. So I encourage patients to be comfortable with this. Your Fitbit, all the information that comes on that goes into some kind of repository, and the information is going to be processed and fed back to you. So AI is definitely beneficial from that perspective. From a medical perspective, I just want to make a point for the medical community that the reduction in medical errors, for example, and improved outcomes. We'll talk a little more about that. We'll talk a little more about the multiple applications. So it is a really exciting time to be involved in this kind of technology and these applications in healthcare.
Okay. Well, listen, gentlemen, thanks so much. I think you just got me on the edge of my seat wanting some more information, as I hope the public will feel the same way. But it's great to see people taking this stuff seriously, especially in our country, and to know that you both are at the forefront of making sure that that change happens and that we're ready for it. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
You're watching Bahamas at Sunrise. We'll be right back.
Incubus is a shared workspace company that provides services for professionals, freelancers, anybody that's in need of a turnkey solution for a private office space, a conference room rental, or part-time office space service. One of our main services that we provide to our members is high-speed internet access. There can be up to about 50 members within our space utilizing the internet and the Rev Voice services. And Rev has done an excellent job of dedicated, reliable, high-speed internet service.
We get up early every morning to offer safe and dependable service. Where quality service is paramount. An excellent travel experience is priority. Connecting the islands of the Bahamas to the world. Bahamas Air. We don't just fly here, we live here.
Our next guest is a 29-year veteran meteorologist who has spent much of his professional life writing books and studying hurricanes. He's been around the world, and of course, he's on his 14th or 15th book.
14th book.
14th book.
Yes.
Wayne Neely, welcome back to the show.
It's a good pleasure to be back.
Man, the first thing I saw is this book is thick.
Yes, it is. It includes all the major hurricanes that impact the Bahamas.
Okay, all right.
From those, a little known hurricane that most persons don't know about was the hurricane of 1500. They call it the Crooked Island hurricane of 1500.
1500.
Yeah, that's when the fleet of Columbus was coming from South America, and they encountered a hurricane in the Bahamas near Crooked Island, and it sunk two ships, the Farilla and a little known ship called the Pinta, which is three of the ships of Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, I remember
Yes.
studying about the three ships.
Yes,
the Pinta.
but no one really never talked about what happened to them after the first voyage of Columbus. Yes.
I don't know if I'm going to embarrass my mom this morning, but I don't even remember hearing about hurricanes affecting those.
It's actually the third documented hurricane in the region.
Okay.
The first two was in Hispaniola in 1495 and 1495 and 1494.
Yeah.
And this one will be the third one. This one.
Okay.
And there were 550 persons in that went down with this. And the Pinta was never discovered until 1986.
Okay. Yeah.
And
40 years,
yes.
30 years ago. So obviously this is what you do, no doubt about it. I mean, 14 books over a 29-year career. This is a compilation, so you go from the storm of 1500 straight up to obviously the most recent.
Yeah, Dorian is included in this.
Okay,
I actually had to stop the press to allow me to add Dorian to the list. Because this is talking about the greatest and deadliest hurricanes that impact the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And Dorian probably is the greatest in recent time.
I'm interested to know, I mean, as you study these, and obviously you're in the business, so to speak, the evolution of the hurricane.
Yes.
I mean, obviously you've seen changes. I mean, global warming, the patterns have changed. It becomes certainly more deadlier as time has gone on. There's nothing really we can do, I mean, except take better care of the environment.
Yes, you have to protect the environment, yes.
Yeah. So speak a little bit about the book.
Well, it talks about the major hurricanes. There was other notable hurricanes in this. The 1866 hurricane, which saw 387 persons dying in that storm. 1899, the Great Bahamas hurricane of 1899, which saw 334. Then you had the popular hurricanes of the 20s. 1926, they had three major hurricanes impacting the region in 1926. And there was two, the Nassau hurricane of 1926 and the Great Miami hurricane of 1926. The Nassau hurricane killed 268 Bahamians.
And that's significant for back then.
For back then, that was very significant. Because back then, and the buildings were substandard. They didn't have no advance warning, so most persons and sponging was the number one industry in the Bahamas at that time. So most able-bodied fishermen from 14 years old, they would go out on sponging trips and not knowing a storm would be coming. And sometimes it would catch them. And one of the book at the 1899 Act, I actually included the names of persons who went down.
Okay.
The 334 victims in the storm, it would be included. The names would be.
How do you get this information?
Well, a series of I used National Hurricane Center, the National Archives. I traveled also around the world. I went to London to research some of the hurricanes for this book.
Okay.
And other ways I get from the libraries as well.
I would imagine the more recent ones, the information's like right at the tip of
your
your
fingertips.
fingertips.
Yes.
And also to with persons,
Yes, and interestingly, the other ones, because back in the night they had better records now back then than I think than now, because they had the commissioners at the end of every hurricane. They had to go on the island, submit a report to the governor, and the governor submitted to the King of England. And so that would be included in London, it also be included in Nassau archives. And so it would be documented, and they did a thorough job of documenting it.
Maybe that's a suggestion that that needs to be made today. You know, again, what do you think is the major difference between hurricanes, you know, in the 1800s, the 1500s, you know, the last century, and today?
Well, for one, back then didn't have warnings, so death toll was significantly higher. The destruction was greater, and the modern day hurricanes, even Dorian, it can't compare with the hurricanes of yesteryear. 1926, 1928, 1929, 1932, 1933. In 1933, you had 4 hurricanes impacting the Bahamas and 1 tropical storm. In 1932, it was the first Category 5 hurricane to impact the Bahamas, was the Great Abaco hurricane of 1932. And they had some in 1926, 1928, 1929. In 1928 hurricane, 1,400 Bahamians were lost. And so it doesn't the death toll was significantly much more back then than now. And that's simply because we didn't have warnings. And the reason why we have the national red we call ZNS, that came about because of a hurricane. The victims started writing petitioning the governor and the King of England to find some way of stopping these storms from destroying their husbands when they go on sponging trips. And the King in England and the governor listened, and they started in May 26, 1936, they implemented ZNS. And the only reason ZNS came about back then at the time was as a hurricane warning station.
Do you think there was something particularly different and unique about Dorian? I mean, you know, we've covered it, and you hear a person say, man, listen, that was in a hurricane. We've never seen anything like that before.
Yes.
You know, what was unique?
Dorian, its strength, and for number one, I think Dorian, there was other Dorians in the past. But the reason why Dorian's a modern day storm, Dorian was one of the greatest storms to impact the region. It was the most intense hurricane in terms of wind speed, and in terms of atmospheric pressure, it was the fifth deadliest hurricane to impact the region. And so it's much.
Hold that just up like that so Shelley can catch that. What do you want people to take away from this book?
Well, it's a history book. Yes, I want to document, because a lot of times we don't document our Bahamian history. We don't tell the story of Bahamians and the impact. For example, for me, I tell about hurricanes and the impact that they had on the economy of the Bahamas, the society of the Bahamas. And that's what I want people to know.
How can people get the book?
It's available at Logos Harbour Shopping Center.
Okay, all right. Okay, Wayne Neely, meteorologist, 29-year veteran.
Yes.
Man, thank you so much, man.
It's my pleasure.
Look forward to your continued work.
Thank you.
All right, you're watching Bahamas Sunrise. We'll be right back.
A new era is coming. January 16th, 2020. Bahamas Business Outlook. A new era. Resilience in the face of vulnerability. Register today. www.tclevents.com. Don't miss it.
Do you want to know more about the scriptures, the early Christian church, its teachings, suffering, other religions, the authenticity of the Bible? The Anglican Theological Institute is for you. Enroll in a 3-year certificate program. Classes are conducted from Nassau and Freeport on Saturday mornings. Don't miss a class. Stay connected anytime, anywhere. with high-speed internet. Contact us at 603-2481. Visit our Facebook page. Pick up an application form at any Anglican church or at Addington House on Sands Road. The Anglican Theological Institute is for you.
Comfort Suites Paradise Island is the best kept secret in the Bahamas. Located directly next door to the Atlantis Resort, you'll receive all the privileges of an Atlantis guest with all the benefits of a Comfort Suite stay. Enjoy everything Atlantis has to offer, including Aqua Venture Water Park, plus all the amenities of Comfort Suites. Free Wi-Fi, free breakfast daily, and kids stay, play, and eat free. Visit ComfortSuitesPI.com.
Welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. We're at the halfway point on this marvelous Monday. I'm Anastasia Palacios.
And I'm Philip Simon. Happy Monday to you.
And we are certainly glad that you stayed with us. It's been an interesting morning so far.
Interesting. I mean, I had to run down here because I still wanted to talk to Wayne Neely a little bit more about this big, thick book he has on the greatest and deadliest hurricanes.
Right.
Just amazing. I was trying to squeeze out of him. I mean, what has happened within the environment, within the climate that has really created these things called Dorian, these superstorms, and it's just, I mean, our technology, I would assume, has gotten better over the years. Yeah. Obviously, we can communicate the storms better. We have a pretty fair idea of what's happening, when they come.
Right.
But when they land, it's a completely different story. It's just devastating.
It's just nature, right? And you look at the Australian wildfires, and you see that close to, 500 million animals have died, and you know that this is just an intensification around the world of whatever zone it in. So whether that's wildfires, which they've always had, or droughts, or hurricanes in our case, or even I had a Canadian friend telling me that they had some trouble skiing this past winter because they're not getting the snowfall that they're used to getting. So for us, it's still freezing cold in Canada, but for them, it's like it's not as cold as it normally is. So we're not getting the same snow. And I mean, these things should concern us because they're very real.
Very real, right? Very real.
Yeah, but hopefully, we will continue to make the adjustments that are necessary to see some things change. And the conversation I had with artificial intelligence was a very good one.
I missed it, yeah.
No, it was a good one. And I
love
think
to watch the show. You
watch the show. Also, Business Outlook is coming up, and so they're going to be discussing it there.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Great.
That's a good way to do it. And then continue to do your own research. The hope and the idea is that as we shift toward artificial intelligence style work and style jobs, hopefully we'll be able to eliminate some of the carbon footprint that we're putting out there, and therefore we'll be able to see some changes as it relates to climate. So hoping for the best as always.
Hoping for the best as always. Simone Bowe is back to talk a little bit more about transitioning in careers and interviewing, and it's just always, I mean, I call it a coach. It's always great when she can come on and just impart some of that knowledge that she's a Kim. I love the talent that we as Bahamians have.
Indeed.
I just love it.
Indeed, and when we can recognize it and others, we do incredibly well.
Yeah.
We're also going to be celebrating with Zonta. They celebrated 100 years and got some pretty good donations from you, the public. So we'll find out how you help to contribute to those celebrations. But before we get to any of that, we're going to take a second look at weather with Godfrey Burnside.
Weather at Sunrise, brought to you by Bahamas First. First in insurance, today, tomorrow.
Thank you, Storm. Good morning, Bahamas. Your second look at the weather at Sunrise. Stationary front over the southeastern islands. Have a couple cloudy periods, maybe an isolated shower possible, but for the most part, dry and stable conditions across the northwest Bahamas where high pressure is building. We expect some increased winds coming late tomorrow into Wednesday. In your marine forecast, those winds northeast to 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 4 feet, over northwest and central Bahamas, 15 knots, 3 to 5 feet over the southeastern islands. Those winds will continue northeast to 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 4 feet over the northwest Bahamas, with 15 knots, 3 to 5 feet over the central and southeastern islands. Then on Wednesday, those winds north to northeast at 15 to 20 knots, seas 4 to 6 feet. Yeah, tides. You can expect a low tide at 10:30 this morning. Next high tide at 4:13 this afternoon. Low again tonight at 10:23. Sunset at 5:35 this evening. Rises tomorrow at 6:56. UV index 6. Your water temperature 76 degrees Fahrenheit. and the moon fade, now moving towards the full moon. Pretty good weekend still weather-wise, partly sunny skies. We expect some breezy conditions starting late tomorrow through the weekend, with just a slight chance of shower coming late Thursday into Friday. Temperature daytime, low to mid-70s daytime, upper 50s to mid-60s at nighttime. That's what's wrapping up our look at weather at sunrise. I'm Captain Burnside. Back to you, Phil.
Thanks very much, Godfrey. Of course, the coach is back. Simone Bowe, better known as, well now, Director of Human Resources and Organizational Development, Bahamas Ministry of Tourism and Aviation. Dear, y'all got a really good one this time. And I'm sure the others were as well, but certainly I know you well.
Thank you.
Simone, thank you for coming back. We started the conversation on Friday past about transitioning careers in HR and from an HR perspective, and we thought it would be sufficiently important for us to continue upon that because we never got to the parts about interviewing. Let's talk about interviewing for a second. Well, before we get into it, let's talk about resumes, which is very important because it's a snapshot of kind of who you are as an individual. So what are some good tips for a standout type of resume?
Yeah. Well, of course, you know, hiring managers, business owners see tons of resumes. And so it is really important to make yours one that they would want to take a second look at. And so some of those tips, I think, is to make sure that it's not overly graphic. And what do I mean by that? Like people use a lot of fancy fonts and they make it pretty. And they may even add a photo and all of that sort of thing. Now, there are differing opinions about that. I always caution against putting a photo. Sometimes people tend to create biases when they look at a photo and they would not look at the rest of your resume. So a nice format, some color is acceptable, making sure there's nice, clean, white space, meaning there's lots of space, it's not crammed, jammed. A resume that shows the flow of your career. Now, if you are someone who has been working for a while, and maybe you have some jobs that you feel don't really relate, then you can create a section of like prior experience and you just list those. And then, of course, if you're invited to an interview, you can just talk about your previous experiences.
But you don't want to have gaps in your resumes.
No. Gaps are red flags. And so you'd want to be able to explain those gaps. So whether it is, you know, now we've gone through a period in our society where there have been redundancies, where there have been like voluntary separations, and so there are times when there may be periods of unemployment. You have some people who have made the decision to be a full-time mom. And so I've seen some creative resumes where people would put, I'm the chief domestic manager of my home, and that's great because there are transferable skills. It shows management, organization, resourcefulness, and so forth. So
well, it's interesting too, even with gaps. I mean, sometimes there are terminations, sometimes there are separations. I mean, should they be addressed in the resume, or is it more effective once you get to an interview to elaborate on what might have happened?
Well, you would list that job opportunity, that where you were and the time frame that you were there. And then if that question comes up, well, why did you leave? And usually it does. Then you can say, well, you know, I was separated. One of the things not to say is, you know, to badmouth your previous employers or to lie. And so you don't want to omit something and then it leaves a greater gap on the resume that someone's going to ask, well, why is this 2-4 year gap here? Were you Freeport jail? Like, what was going on?
Let's talk a little bit about the interviews now. So you got the resume all sorted out, somebody's expressed some interest, and they invite you for an interview. How do you prepare for the interview?
Well, first of all, of course, the basic things about grooming and all of that. And I think we've relaxed a lot of the traditional things about wearing black or navy or gray. I think you can liven up your outfit with a splash of color. But you need to bear that in mind with the type of organization that you're going to. So whether you are more dressed down, whether you're more formal, that sort of thing. I think the greatest level of preparation, however, is preparing your responses to questions. So there are some typical questions that always come up. One of the ones that I find people are usually stumped by is tell me about yourself, believe it or not. Now, interviewers use that as a break the ice type of question. Like what you really want to know. And so people are a little unsure of what should I share, you know, should I share personal things, professional things? And so you should really share professional things and things about your character, your work ethic, your civic interests, things like that, that give them a snapshot of who you are. You should never go in into an interview, especially the first interview, asking about money, asking about compensation and benefits, right? You want to always have a question prepared. And ask questions about the company itself, about the role, about development, about how you can grow in the organization, things you want to know about the organization.
It's not all just about you sitting there answering questions. You have to research.
You should research and ask questions. And you should prepare yourself for behavioral interviews. And those interviews are where the hiring manager will ask you what-if questions. They will put scenarios to you. And they will ask you, what would you do in a situation like this? And so you should always be prepared, you know, what would you do if maybe someone was stealing or a coworker was doing this or a customer did that? What would you do in that scenario?
So generally speaking then, I mean, obviously, what is the interviewer or the hirer looking for from a candidate?
I think people are looking, generally speaking, of course, skill is important, but I'm finding that more and more people would prefer to find someone with good character, first of all. Someone, as I mentioned, that shows that they have good ethic, good work, good attitude, that they're a team player, that they can think critically, that they can problem solve, and that they can fit into the organization as far as their personality and expectations. And so people can train skills. I can teach you how to use the computer. I can't teach you to be a friendly person or an honest person. And you may say, well, how would someone know that in an interview? By those types of questions they will ask, plus the background checks and checking references.
Right, and of course it goes to another level once you get to that second and third interview. I mean, it changes, right?
Absolutely, it gets a little bit more intense. You would probably meet with persons higher up in the organization, and of course they're looking for the same thing.
You get to that second and third interview, what should you be doing differently?
You should actually be able to talk about results, because people at that level, they want to know that the work is going to get done. And so a lot of times people are disappointed by people that have glowing resumes. They may have great jobs, they may have a great educational background, but they can't execute. And so you should be able to talk about, in previous roles, what were you able to accomplish? I think that's how you can really step your game up to people at like a CEO level or a business owner. They're looking for like, how could you how can you add value? How can you get my work done?
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's, you know, you get it all the time, a request for a reference, right? You know, and it's a good thing, you know, I mean, it's no shame in that. I mean, so when persons are, you know, utilization of your network of friends and colleagues and even family, I mean, to find a new job, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Who should be the persons giving you references?
Well, references should be people that know you well, but who are not family. Because of course that lends to bias, right? Of course, the family should be able to say, oh, this person is great. So you want to use people that you have worked with before. Supervisors, former managers are always great. Pastors are good for like character references, but not professional references. But as far as, you know, who you should connect with when you're looking for a job, this is the time when who you know really does count.
Right, okay.
Tapping into that network that you mentioned, because a lot of jobs are not put out there. They're not advertised because people want to cut through all of that fluff and having to go through so many resumes. If you could just refer somebody to me and I know you, and I trust you, exactly, then, oh, okay, Philip sent this guy, let me give him a chance, right, and talk to him. So you need to just put it out there. You know, tell people, you know, I'm looking, I want to move, I want to change careers, I want to do this or that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Simone Bowe, Director of Human Resource and Organizational Development, Bahamas Ministry of Tourism and Aviation, also known as the COAT. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
You're watching Bahamas to Sunrise. We'll be right back.
This is Eddie, and Eddie's a change counter. This is Sean. Sean doesn't have to count change because when Sean purchases a plan with Alive, it's VAT inclusive. Keep things simple. Just like Alive's all-new VAT-inclusive prepaid plans with more talk, more text, and even more data. So don't be an Eddie. Freedom simplified. Alive. Believe in best.
Welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. Well, you might have remembered last year that we had the Zonta Club of Nassau and New Providence on. They were celebrating 100 years at this time. As a part of those celebrations, they collected donations to help women in need. Our Suzette Parker has that story.
Zonta provides service and advocacy for women and girls. They recently organized donations for charities helping women in need.
Well, Zonta's mandates are for providing service and advocacy for women and girls around the world, and we bring it down to our local communities, and we look at different activities throughout the year that we can do to support women and girls. This was one of the activities that we thought was quite needed, and so we got a fundraiser going, and we raised some funds, and with those funds, our mandate was to provide support kits for women and girls. And this was before the storm even came on board. It was earlier this year that we were looking to do that. And then we realized that with the advent of the storm that, you know, those items that we take for granted every day, when people lose everything, you know, they have nothing, and they come to agencies like the Crisis Center and the Salvation Army and others to look for help and assistance. So we felt that this was so important at that time that we can provide this support for those agencies, because we know they have been inundated with a lot of persons coming in over the past several months.
We have a lot of stuff. We've got 11 items in the bag. Okay, we've got toilet paper, we've got soap, we've got deodorant, we've got pads, we have panty liners, we have deodorant, we have wipes, we have all kind. We have small washcloth, we have toothbrush, toothpaste, everything that you could possibly need for women. And the idea is that we're going to donate these items to the Salvation Army, to the Crisis Center, because they often see women who are in need, who may be fleeing some unfortunate circumstance and just need some of those basic items.
Zonta is celebrating 100 years of service this year, and Zonta Bahamas has contributed greatly locally.
So Zonta has been around for 100 years. We are celebrating a 100-year anniversary on November 8th. 2019 would have made 100 years that Zonta has been around, and we are in over 67 countries. We are 30,000 members strong, and we have over 1,200 clubs all around the world. 2 of those clubs sit in the Bahamas. So the Bahamas has really made a mark in the map of Zonta with being able to provide service and advocacy through the efforts that we do for the organization. For Zonta Club of Nassau, we have 2 major foundations that would have come out of some of the work that we'd have done over the years, and that would be the AIDS Foundation and the PACE Center and PACE Foundation.
These supplies are very much needed and greatly appreciated.
On a daily basis, we see women and children, and many of them, especially at recent times, are in great need of everything. And these donations would really assist us greatly. And remember, we're a nonprofit, so that we don't have the monies to buy and stock all of these items. So these are going to come in extremely happy, they're going to be very good for us, and they're going to make our clients very happy.
Well, the Salvation Army operates a women's emergency shelter in Grantstown for women and their children, of course. And we are always constantly in need of these types of supplies for the ladies. And so this helps us in that we don't have to go searching around and looking for extra supplies, that we have them right on hand. When people are in need, we can just go and say, okay, here's a little kit. And it also helps because the ladies sometimes, might not want to ask for things, and we can, when they come in, we can say, here's the kit to help you. And so they can feel a little bit more relaxed and at ease, shall we say.
Corporate sponsorship is vital for this kind of work.
Well, for us, it was a very worthwhile cause. And when we were looking at donations and the request came, we could not see ourselves not performing and assisting. We know that Zonja has been in the Bahamas for a very long time, and I know that they're celebrating this year their 100th anniversary. And so it just made sense. And realizing that they will actually be giving back to society, to the Salvation Army and to the Women in Crisis Center for needs that we see reoccurring all the time. So for us, it was a worthwhile cause.
The work can't be done unless you have that corporate support. And I think it's good for people to see corporations involved in the community in that way. I think it's a win-win. It's good for them and it's good for us as well.
Zonta's been a partner with us for many, many years. They've done a lot of projects to help the women's shelter and to help other aspects of the Salvation Army. They are a regular with our Christmas Kettle campaign, and they've just been really good volunteers and very good supporters throughout the years.
For Bahamas at Sunrise, this is Suzette Parker.
Maybe you have Rev Phone with its tons of awesome and free features. Or you're watching great content on Rev TV. Or maybe you have our blazing fast internet. So you already know how good it is to have one Rev service. Imagine if you had all three. With Trio, you get all of our services for $99. And you get entered into our $250,000 cashback Christmas. So the question is, why don't you have Trio? Just call 601-8992 or email us at trio@cablebahamas.com. Rev, you and us together.
Make a New Year's resolution to invest in yourself. Bahamas Business Outlook, January 16th, 2020. Register today, www.tclevents.com.
One thing, two things. Blue thing, old things, things that are small, things that are grand, things that fit just right in the palm of your hand. Fox Hill Nursery, a large selection of garden supplies. If you can see it in your mind, you can find it at Fox Hill Nursery.
That's going to do it for us, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in today.
Yes, thank you very much. And listen, you guys have a wonderful week despite the Eagles' loss yesterday.
And I would like to wish a very happy anniversary to Tanya and Alan Pickstock as they celebrate today. And may, of course, they enjoy the day. And for all of the Patriot fans who are also sad, we wish you a wonderful week. Bye.